All right, everyone, it's 7:01, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Meredith Peterson, the Executive Director here at the Down Syndrome Association of Pittsburgh, so welcome. This is one of our virtual speaker series, so we do try to offer usually one or two each month as an educational opportunity for our community. And so tonight we are joined by Nancy Murray and Amy Guthrie, as well as Ben Guthrie, who is Amy's son, and we're going to be discussing the topic, Let's Go to College. And so both Nancy and Amy are from Achieva. Amy is a disability advocate, and Nancy is the president of the ARC of Greater Pittsburgh. So they're going to be able to provide some awesome resources for you. And we do ask that if you do have questions, if you can put them in the chat or wait till the end, and we can, you can raise your hand and we can call on you. And you can unmute yourselves, but we do ask that you do keep yourself muted during the conversation because we have a lot to cover. The other thing too, I will be sending out the slides at the end as a resource. So, don't worry, you don't have to take a bunch of notes. We will provide that to you. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free. I will be monitoring the chat, and we are recording it, as you all know, as you're getting on. So we'll also have that playback for you as well to be able to go back as a reference. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and get this started, and I will turn it over to Nancy. You're going to talk first?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. I will pass it over to Nancy. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Meredith, and welcome everybody. Amy and I are very excited to be able to share some information with you tonight. I'm sure you are hearing that more and more young people with Down syndrome and other intellectual and developmental disabilities are headed to college, something I never thought I'd be working on in my career. So this is very exciting. Next slide, please. For those of you who don't know too much about Achieva, I'll just real quickly, we are one of the largest providers of services for children and adults with all types of disabilities and their families. We provide services starting with early intervention, which I'm sure you all are quite familiar with, all the way up to programs for young people, such as those entering the workforce and going to college, and all the way up through adulthood to senior services. We provide, as I said, early intervention. We also provide employment supports, residential supports. We also have the Achieva Family Trust. And as you can see there, we actually now have two ARC chapters, the ARC of Greater Pittsburgh and the ARC of Erie County. Erie County joined us just about a year ago. And about 2 years ago, the Autism Connection joined the Achieva family. So that's a real quick tour through all the work that we do. And there you'll see our geographic reach. Most of our work is in Erie, Beaver, Allegheny, and Westmoreland, although as you see the dots throughout the state, those are mostly the Achieva Family Trust, which provides services in all of those counties. Meredith? Mission and vision, we advocate for and empower supports for people with disabilities and their families throughout their lives. We are one of the only organizations in the area that is still providing advocacy free of charge for people with disabilities and their families. And we also put a lot of emphasis on the support that we give to families. And our vision is for a community where all people with disabilities will lead lives of personal significance, not what other people tell people with disabilities and how they should live their lives, but how people with disabilities want to live their lives. And our core values are important to us. We certainly value and celebrate and respect people. We are dedicated, and I can say the advocacy team is probably one of the most passionate teams at Achieva. We really strive to provide the best practices in everything that we do. We're also driven by innovation and inclusive person-centered practices. We are definitely one of the organizations in the state of Pennsylvania known for a lot of innovative services. And at Achieva, we are challenging and supporting each other to do more, to do better almost every day. So with that, let's turn our attention to what you came to hear about tonight. I wanted to start off with talking a little bit about, the benefits of a post-secondary education. And these are three, facts that every time I read them, I realize just how important a post-secondary education can be to young people. But research, and this is coming from Think College, and we'll talk more about Think College in a minute. But what we know is that young people with intellectual disabilities who participate in a college program had a 73% higher income than those who only receive services through vocational rehabilitation. That's a pretty startling fact. We also know that when students graduate, nearly 80% of them are paid at or above the minimum wage. And last but not least, of the students who are employed as they're leaving their college program, 90% are in jobs that are integrated in our communities and in the competitive labor market. So those are three reasons why post-secondary educations are so important. Next slide, Meredith. The other thing is the benefits of being on campus. Students, on campus, whether they're living on campus or they're coming, as day students, learn some of the most important skills that they will also need for more independent living and being employed. One being time management. When a student is on campus and not there at home with mom and dad to tell them what time to get up in the morning and what time to get to class, students need to learn time management. They're also exposed to a lot of opportunities to participate in recreation and wellness activities. Certainly, social experiences. For those living on campus, will have roommates, they'll have friends. So they will have social experiences that young people who are not on campus are not going to have. They're going to have different experiences. They're also going to have to learn how to manage their money, how to budget so that they don't run out before the end of the month. And last but not least, they're going to be living on their own. Certainly, they're going to be supported by folks on campus, but they're going to be more independent living on campus as opposed to living at home with mom and dad. There are many, many different types of college programs. Just so you know, right now there's over 300 in the United States, about 19 or so in Pennsylvania. Some are non-degree programs. Some are located at public colleges, some at private colleges. Some of the programs are 4-year programs, others are 2-year programs. Some are at colleges, some are at universities, and those are different schools. Some are also located at technical colleges. And the number of students in programs will vary also. Some students will graduate with certificates, some will graduate more with a degree. And as I mentioned before, some students will live on campus, others will be commuter students. The other thing is other ways that programs can vary. Some programs insist that the student has graduated from high school. Others will accept students who are over 18 but still in high school between the ages of 18 and 21, and those are called dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment programs. And another distinguishing factor between the schools are Some schools offer varying degrees of participation with regular college classes, whereas other schools are totally fully inclusive, where the program, the students in the program are really with regular ed students 100% of the time. So there's a lot of differences in the college programs. Meredith? Admission requirements for students like Ben in programs for students with intellectual disabilities differ from students who do not have disabilities. The admission process for what we'll call non-degree programs differ from that of degree programs. Most importantly, for the non-degree program, students generally do not need a standard high school diploma. They may be admitted with an IEP diploma, a certificate of attendance, some sort of alternate diplomas. You have to keep in mind that, schools across the country, different states call things by different names. But the main thing to remember is that in the non-degree programs, students can be accepted without a standard high school diploma. Students also will most likely not have to take standardized tests such as ACTS or SATs. However, students in the non-degree programs will still need documentation of an intellectual disability, information that describes their strengths, their support needs, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit. But other than these important considerations, you have to remember there are different requirements for different schools. And more than likely, all schools are going to require that the student have employment goals, that students are able to manage their medications and use the cell phones. So those are three things to begin to think about. These are skills that, students can be working on at home while they're in high school. And most programs will also be admitting students between the ages of 18 and 26. But keep in mind, not all programs have that upper age limit. So how do you get started? Well, start no later than age 14. Okay. And part of your student's transition plan and IEP need to include goals that are going to lead to success on a college campus. And a little bit ago, we talked about the importance of time management, money management, and in addition to that, digital skills. The skills of using a laptop, of using a computer or an iPad, because students are going to need to use them in college. The other thing is, the decision-making skills that students are going to have to, work on. Again, some of that's related to time management, but also decisions about whether or not to go to a party on Friday night where beer may be served. And certainly self-advocacy, students, developing the skills to advocate for themselves. One example I always think about is having the skill to be able to, go and talk to a professor if the student's not understanding some of the coursework. That's an example of self-advocacy. The other thing that more and more students are doing is really developing good person-centered plans, which really, in most cases, are going to help to hone in on the goals and the skills that students may need to work on before they get to the college campus. A good person-centered plan is also going to really help everybody to see students' strengths and interests and abilities more than an IEP or transition plan will ever do. And the other thing, obviously, part of getting started is to start researching colleges and universities. And again, especially if the student's going to graduate at 18, starting at 14 is none too early. Meredith. So especially throughout high school, we've talked a little bit about, building your college readiness skills. Again, that time management, money management, self-advocacy skills. Another thing that's important is taking general ed classes as much as possible. And this will generally help a student to, make their academic skills stronger, especially in the areas of language, English, math. The more that the students take general ed classes, research is showing their academic skills are stronger. Students also have to be able to understand their disability, how that disability impacts their learning styles, so that when they get on campus, they can begin to talk with their professors, their instructors, folks in the disability services offices, about any accommodations that they may need. As we said, throughout high school, work with somebody to develop a person-centered plan, not only focusing on that IEP and transition plan. We have somebody at Achieva, Amy and I work with, his name is Jack Butler. He works with hundreds and hundreds of people and their families on person-centered planning. And at the end of the PowerPoint, there's an information about how to get in touch with Jack. The other thing throughout high school, participate in extracurricular activities, develop those networks, develop those friendships, and develop those social relationships. And really for some students, it really is developing your skills to learn how to make friendships with your same age peers. And then last but not least, we encourage students to volunteer. You learn a lot as a volunteer. Again, time management, social relationships, how to, work as a group. We also encourage students to work, to get a job. That will also help to pay for college. And for many students, they can also take advantage of internships. But when it comes to your junior year, this is where you get a little more serious. This is where students really, there's got to be discussions with students about the difference between high school and college. Between, families, teachers, guidance counselors, maybe support coordinators, really helping the student to understand how life at college is going to be different. And that's going to mean, what living away from home is going to mean. Mom's not going to be there to do your laundry, things like that. And this is also where it's a good time to really start to have discussions with your young person about, what do you want to do after college? Most of us went to college so that we get a job afterwards. That's no different for kids with disabilities. I can't say enough about Think College. All you have to do is Google it. There's a section on the Think College website called College Search. You can go on there and kind of hone in on different factors. Do you want to live in the South, in the North? Do you want rural or urban? And it helps you really kind of hone in on potential colleges that might be of interest to the student. And then, of course, just like students without disabilities, it's a good idea to start to make a list, to visit colleges or universities' websites for more details, right? And these days, many programs offer both online and in-person open houses, so you don't actually have to get in a car and go to the school. That's a great way to learn about the programs that are offered, about the schools, and also a way to talk with students who are already attending the colleges. And then certainly sooner or later, it's time to actually, get in the car and visit a school, or go online and do a virtual visit. And then, senior year or the year before accepting your diploma, this is when you have to complete and submit your application, and you got to do it by the deadline dates. This is when students really, need to have real good conversations, if they haven't already, with their IEP team and support coordinator. Again, obtaining the documentation that's going to be necessary for any accommodations that will be needed on campus. This is a time to meet with the counselor at your college's Office of Disability Services. Again, this could be done virtually or in person. Certainly towards the end of your senior year, just like with kids without disabilities, you got to start to research and decide which classes you'd like to take. And then you'll be invited to attend a new student orientation. And the information that most families really are interested in at this point is how you pay for college. And I can tell you that for kids or students with intellectual disabilities, there's actually a lot of financial resources out there. And we could spend a whole time just talking about this. We're going to go quickly through this, but I can certainly send more to you if you're interested. Primary resources are going to be through the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, a Medicaid home and community-based waiver. And then if your college is an approved comprehensive transition program, student can apply for federal financial aid, just like students without disabilities. Secondary resources, if your young person has become eligible for SSI, certainly SSI payments can go to pay for college. There are scholarships available. If you live in the city of Pittsburgh, there's Pittsburgh Promise. For those in Pennsylvania, there's also the Dream Partnership. And for students, especially with Down syndrome, there's Ruby's Rainbow. There's also private pay, just like, again, for students without disabilities. Many kids with Down syndrome have jobs in the summer, so their wages can go help to pay for college. I know that you've had other speakers talk about ABLE accounts. Certainly, monies in ABLE accounts can be used to pay for school. And, some parents through their employer will have grants, loans available that can go to pay for their children's college. There's special needs trusts. If you are lucky to be in a school district where they will approve of dual enrollment, you will also be able to have the school district pay for some of your college expenses. And then I also listed Pennsylvania Assistive Technology Foundation here, especially if, or specifically, if your student is in need of some assistive technology. PATF has loans that are available. We mentioned OVR, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. It's good to request an application about 2 years prior to graduation or aging out of high school. They sometimes have a backlog, so we always tell people start early with OVR. The student has to be deemed eligible for vocational rehab services to receive support for college. So you have to go through that whole eligibility process. And this is important. OVR will pay for part tuition, fees, books and supplies, and some of your room and board costs and transportation. All OVR funding will be paid directly to the college or university, would not be a check to the student or the family. And one of the requirements is that the classes the students are enrolled in have to be related to a competitive employment goal. And that's not as tough as it sounds. Meredith. Waivers. In Pennsylvania, Medicaid waiver funds can be used for, and I only listed a few here because these are the ones that typically students going to college would be most interested in. Medicaid waiver funds can be used for a lot of other services, but these are the ones that are most relatable to post-secondary ed. Next slide, Meredith. I mentioned one of the services is called in-home and community support. And as the name implies, these services will assist a person in acquiring, maintaining, and enhancing community living skills. Examples: self-care, health, wellness, and nutrition. My favorite, time management. Also help students learn how to pay their bills, how to navigate transportation system on campus. It will, help a student to make relationships and community connections safely. Good old money management. The other service, Medicaid waiver service, that's critical for students on campus or going to a post-secondary program is called education support services. It will pay for tuition. However, the caveat is, as long as 75% of the students' time on campus is integrated with the general student population. Now, that can include classes. It can include, recreational activities, life in the dorm. So it's not as hard as it sounds to get to that 75%. ESS services can also pay for fees that are charged to all students, such as technology and facility fees. Education support services also include on-campus peer support, and examples are staff who help students with ID with homework, study skills. What's important is waivers can never pay for books, room and board, and recreational activities. So that's the big difference between Medicaid waiver and OVR. OVR can cover your room and board. And also, Medicaid waiver cannot pay for something that's available through OVR or IDEA. The reason being, this is a Medicaid waiver, and Medicaid will always be the payer of last resort. Meredith, there you go. We mentioned on-campus peer support services. And this is something that a college can voluntarily provide. It may also include assessments, finding and coaching jobs, internships, travel instruction. And obviously this would be very, individualized for each student, but there's a lot in that one service called on-campus peer support. However, Medicaid will not pay for it if it's replacing support that the college or university is already required to pay for through the Office of Disability Services. Again, because Medicaid is the payer of last resort. So what can we help you with at Achieva? We can certainly give you information about the programs that already are underway in Pennsylvania. We can, introduce you to some of the people, the directors, some of the programs. We can help you by putting you in touch with some families and students who are already attending college. We can certainly talk with you more about, resources to pay for college. We can take a look at your IEP or transition plan, maybe make suggestions for other goals that you may want to consider that are more college focused, and recommendations that, will help the student develop those skills that he or she are going to need once they get to campus. And as I mentioned before, doing some good person-centered planning. And I have to say, even if, your student decides that post-secondary ed is not for him or her, I'm going to recommend that you look into person-centered planning. As I said, it's a wonderful exercise for people to go through. It's not your IEP or ISP. It really, as the name implies, focuses on the person with the disability, focuses on their skills, their gifts, their interests, and it really helps families to really focus on what's next for the person, whether that's education, whether that's living in the community or employment. Person-centered planning is something, if you haven't gotten involved with it yet, I'm almost sure you will at some point in the future. And now it is my pleasure to turn the rest of the presentation over to my coworker, Amy, and her son, Ben, who is a student at Duquesne University. And there he stands proudly in front of the Duquesne University sign. So Ben, Amy, take it away.
Okay. Yeah, so when Ben was in, I suppose it was 8th grade in Pittsburgh Public Schools, we started getting all these mailings about the Pittsburgh Promise. And I kind of thought, well, I guess this doesn't apply to us, just kind of feeling bummed that, this was an opportunity that he would never have. Little did I know that, a few years later, I would be learning a whole lot about inclusive college programs. And so it's been quite an amazing journey. Do you want to tell them what year you are at Duquesne? I threw him a curveball. I should have prepped him. So this is your 4th year, right? What's gonna happen in May? You're gonna graduate? Yeah, so he's gonna graduate. So this is his 4th year. He is a commuter in the program. Some people have the option to live on campus, but we opted to have him be a commuter. And do you want to say anything about what you study at Duquesne?
Philosophy, environment.
Philosophy of the environment. You caught that? And
Ecology club.
You're doing ecology club. Yeah.
And environmental justice.
Yes, environmental justice. So my thought, maybe let me just let Meredith proceed through rather than getting too sidetracked. I'll explain as we go along. So, as Nancy said, some of this will be a little bit of a repetition of what Nancy said, but it's kind of from the actual experience that we lived through. So when he was 14, we were getting, again, Pittsburgh Promise mailings, and, we had this, our first transition planning session as part of his IEP. And, it's really hard to imagine what a 14-year-old is going to do when they grow up. Right. And so but it's really actually wonderful part of the IEP process, because it does make you start thinking, where does a young person see themselves in 10 years, in 5 years, in 4 years, and then how do we work backwards from that? So we'll get to your stuff in a little while when we get to the pictures. Okay. So it's so important to think about the person-centered planning, as Nancy was saying. And my approach has always been to, nurture the strengths and interests, try anything and everything. If it's an interest, keep it. If it's not, move on, and so we've just always done, travel, hiking, camping, just anything, outings into the city, just all different kinds of things. He's done a ton of music as well. That's been a big interest of his. But just kind of, again, building on some of these things early on with the thought that if he can maybe participate in extracurricular at high school, and then, will that take him somewhere else beyond that? So we, heavily, emphasize person-centered planning, and then knowing what the resources are out there as far as PATN, which is the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, part of Pennsylvania Department of Education, very useful website. Transition Discoveries is also extremely useful website. And get to know your school district's transition coordinator. Every school district has a person who specializes in that particular piece, because it's, it's important and it's complicated. It's complex because there are many moving parts, right? You've got different agencies, different, everybody's got a slightly different role to play, and the transition coordinator can be really helpful in teaching you how to sort of sort through that. And then always trying to have high expectations paired with appropriate supports. So, just whatever, try anything and everything, try to have that support in place. And, who knows? You just never know until you really give it a try. This is a resource that's on the PATN website that I love, because it helps you to kind of wrap your mind around how do we do transition planning, because the transition grid and IEP is broken down into education, employment, and then community living. But again, as a 14-year-old, they're not going to be getting their driver's license yet, or, they're not going to be applying for college at age 14. But what do we need to do at that age to get them ready for what they need to do later on? So it breaks it down. There's the backside to this goes all the way up to, I think, age 21, if I'm not mistaken. So you definitely check out that website if you get a chance. And and again, if you contact Achieva, I can always send you this resource. Okay, go ahead, Marie. Meredith, thank you. So as I said, as far as like person-centered planning all along, I was sort of thinking, how do we use the skills that we're looking to have him develop, and kind of have him practice them both in school and in extracurricular activities. So we, tried to weave these throughout his IEP, his communication skills. Obviously, he had speech therapy, social skills, self-advocacy, safety awareness, organization, listening comprehension and processing, following multi-step directions, following a schedule and telling time, using money, reading comprehension, and written expression. So like, an IEP is more than just, the person will read, at a 7th grade level or whatever. It's how are we, is the person organized, or do they need help with that? Are they able to follow multi-step directions? So those things can be practiced throughout the IEP, through the school day, not only in the classes, but in unstructured settings such as lunch, recess, whatever, as well as in, their extracurricular activities. And in Ben's case, we took advantage of, Manchester Craftsmen's Guild has a partnership with the city schools, so he was able to do some of that after school, and they were amazing. They just, you know, I put him on the bus. He just went on the bus with all the other kids, went down there, took the pottery classes, you know, and what else did you do there? You did pottery, you did photography, and then he was in marching band as well. So he did a lot of different activities in high school that kind of, again, built on the skills and continued to give him opportunities to practice the skills. So it's 12th grade. What is next? By now, you know, he has opened the case with OVR, as Nancy said. You know, that an OVR, I saw there was a question in the chat about OVR. OVR is the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. It's a part of the PA Department of Labor and Industry. So it's a state organization, state office. And it provides, you know, what they call early reach for students who are like 14 to 18. Well, actually in school, as long as they haven't received their diploma, they're in the early reach program. And it's wonderful. They will do, you know, teach interviewing skills, resume skills, all different types of the soft skills that go along with work. They also do paid work experiences and job shadowing. So they're a wonderful resource. So we had opened the case to get him started with OVR. And, you know, we're thinking, what's he going to do after 12th grade? And you know, according to the IDEA, a person who has not completed and mastered all of their IEP goals can continue to receive school services until age 21, as long as they don't accept their diploma. So, you know, senior year, he walked with his class, you know, cap and gown, prom, the whole 9 yards, but he just did not accept a diploma at that point, so that he could continue in the 18 to 21 programming that was offered by the city schools. So Pittsburgh Public Schools has a program called City Connections. And again, this is for students who are between 18 and 21 years old. If people are in other school districts, actually City Connections can accept some students, you know, from surrounding districts. The districts just, you know, work out an arrangement. There are some other, there's the St. Anthony program at Duquesne. There are a few other programs. Bearcat Best out in Westmoreland, I believe is a similar type program. So that's one option. And then there's like Sunrise and Pathfinder have the Pride program. There are a number of different programs for 18 to 21. And all of it is about working on these goals for transition, right? Education, employment, and community living. So he was in the City Connections site at the CCAC Allegheny campus. They have sites across the city, and 2 of the classrooms are on the CCAC campus. So my thought was, he'll be on a campus, he'll get some experience, see what it's like, and if he really likes it, then we can pursue, you know, the 4-year program at a college. And he had a great time. You remember City Connections at CCAC? That was fun, huh? I took a couple classes there. And you know, had a really great experience. And they did travel training, just all, and job coaching and things like that. So the picture on this slide is of him at the same time he was in City Connections. He also was doing a paid work experience with OVR. So that, again, these some of these programs can sort of run concurrently if you want, or maybe you could do OVR in the summer, or, you know, there are different configurations. But his you know, he did basically on Fridays, he went to a job site for OVR and had a job coach there with him, and just had some, you know, tried it out, see if you liked it, you know, practiced, you know, following multi-step directions and doing all that kind of stuff we already talked about. So the agencies, you know, in this phase, you know, it's essential to be, you know, have that OVR case open. And also, if the student qualifies for intellectual disability and or autism services, then to also have a supports coordinator through Office of Developmental Programs. So those 2 are listed on this slide as well. You know, because it's during this phase, you're having to phase in the the agencies that will provide the support for the adult services. So, and so you're looking towards OVR and Office of Developmental Programs for people with ID and autism. So, and as he was turning 21, I had this distinct feeling that we were falling off a cliff, you know, or just kind of on some like cartoon of the Roadrunner or something, just like ready to fall off a cliff. But it went okay. We fell off to a soft landing, and it all worked out. You know, again, knowing that he was interested in a college program, we visited some different ones starting the fall of 2018. We happened to have relatives in Kansas, so we looked at the University of Kansas TAP program, we looked at Slippery Rock, we looked at Duquesne. And again, continuing to have the OVR counselor and supports coordinator involved and having all of his documents aligned for these goals is really essential. So, okay, go ahead. So he applied and was accepted to the Duquesne Compass program fall of 2019. And these are a few pictures of him in the program. And just as a brief overview of what that program looks like, it's 6 credits per semester for 2 years or 4 years. And they earn a certificate from that. They take content area courses with modifications. So that's what's really nice about it, is that it's, you know, like if he just went and enrolled in, you know, a college class, just like any other student, then there would be very few, very basic accommodations. With this, you know, he is able to, like, for example, the picture in the middle, you know, we realized that testing is not the best way for him to demonstrate his knowledge, his mastery. So the professor agreed that he could do PowerPoint presentations in lieu of testing. So just that kind of thing, that they're able to make modifications. And because he had already had the paid work experience at Phipps Conservatory, and we knew he was really interested in working with plants, we thought, why not try some biology classes? So that's, you know, he's taken a number of biology classes. You mentioned earlier the philosophy of the environment. So, which that was, again, having high expectations. I always want to push myself as the mother to have high expectations, but when they said philosophy, I was like, isn't that a lot of reading? I don't know. But again, they, you know, are able to modify it. He's able to, you know, learn some about the concepts. They have some different videos and things, and he's got really good tutors. They have excellent peer tutors and mentors that work with the students. And many of them are from the occupational therapy department on campus, so which is an added bonus. The program also includes internships and then option to commute or live on campus. And they're very strongly stressed person-centered planning. They did a very thorough person-centered plan when they accepted him into the program, and then they update that every year. So the top picture, do you want to talk about any of these pictures, Ben? The internship. I can't really see. We have our little alignment of picture that he was at Pittsburgh Botanic Garden. And
Pittsburgh Botanic Garden, Indy Warhol.
And what's your internship now?
And Frick Park.
Frick Park. So he's had his 3rd big internship that he's still working on right now at Frick Park. What else did you want to say? Favorite classes?
Biology, rock and roll.
Right, he had a rock and roll class, which was pretty fun. Yeah. What else? Favorite activities? What do you like to do at Duquesne?
Play some pool table at the 9 spot.
You play pool with the kids? And then what do you want to do after you graduate?
I want to be after I graduate. I want to keep working at Frick Park and Phillips.
Yeah. He really likes Frick Park and Phipps. So hopefully, he'll get hired there. So I think that's all for us. I think there may be a few more slides that are more resources and things like that. So
Yeah, those are some of the resources of some of the organizations that we've mentioned this evening with the websites that you can go on for more further information. And then last but not least, if you have any questions for either Amy and Ben or myself, there are our email addresses. So we invite you to give us a call. Don't hesitate, and we'll try to help you if we can.
Is it okay if I jump in with a couple of questions from the chat?
I expect that you would.
So first off, just in jumping off of Amy and Ben here, someone asked about gen ed versus resource room with Ben's experience and inclusion and things like that. Maybe if you can touch on that, Amy or Ben.
Yeah. So in elementary through high school, he had both resource or learning support for, his kind of core, like English or reading and math. And then pretty much just inclusion for his other classes. It's funny. It's hard to remember back there, but I really tried to communicate with teachers to make sure that we were I was supporting as much as I could from home, whether it was English class or French class or whatever, just giving him those opportunities to process the information, because it's a lot, and kind of getting a good system down for what worked for him for learning, whatever the concept was for the, I think sometimes I found like in like a social studies class, there were always like tons of definitions you had to learn, and so I was just always trying to figure out what is the best way to make this, stick for him, so I guess that partly it's just my sort of compulsive teacher side. I was always like thinking, what can we do to help this? So it was a fair amount of work, I would say, that I brought upon myself, but I guess I enjoyed it. So but it was a combination of they called it learning support in Pittsburgh public schools, and then inclusion. So he did have a PCA that helped a lot, and I know a lot of school districts kind of go back and forth on, do you have one-on-one aid that follows the person around, and for some people that might not be the right answer, but it worked for us to have a one-on-one aid that could help with the academics, really anything, organization or whatever, so they were able to help with that.
Awesome. Who starts the plan? Like, who starts the OVR process? Does the school help, or do the parents need to do this? Like, how does that get started?
So the school will give you they'll hand you a brochure and say, here you go. Like, you have to do it, but they should give you like the number. Every high school has an OVR counselor assigned to them. So they should put you in contact with that counselor to get the process started. And if they say, oh, your kid's too young, just, say, I realize, like, I think I would be most comfortable like opening the case junior year. I wouldn't wait till senior year because they might want to do testing and you don't want to drag it out, let them get their own test. Like basically what the OER counselor does is they work with the student to do an IPE, which is the individual plan for employment. And from that, then they'll say, okay, if you're interested in work, then let's see where your, where your scores are. So they'll do their own like testing, and they'll like do the authorization for to fund it, right? So the OER counselor basically works off the IPE and funds whatever, and then we'll put you in contact with, like, for the paid work experience, then they approved that service, and then they connected us with an employment agency who in turn set us up with a job coach. And then we talked about, okay, what would he be interested in? Oh, does he like plants? Okay, let's try FIPS. And then so it just kind of worked from there. But yeah, you have to do it. You have to initiate that call, but the school should put you in contact with the person who's assigned to their school.
All right, here's a specific question. Our son will be 16 in March in Washington County. We moved up recently to emergency status with our ISP coordinator. However, they recently asked if we would move back to the waitlist status. We are planning on him graduating at 18, and they said we may or may not receive waiver assistance if we move back to waiting list status. So should we stay at emergency?
Well, emergency is waiting list status. There are three lists, if you will, or categories of the waiting list. One is emergency for people who obviously have an imminent need for services. The other is critical, meaning you need services within the next 2 years. And the last category is planning. So I'm not sure of the question, because if you're on the emergency list, you should stay on the emergency list. That is a waiting list. And whoever asked the question, if you want to email me tomorrow, I can try to help you a little bit more with that.
Okay. Yes, they're going to do that. Are you familiar with the Hiram G. Andrews assessment evaluation through OVR? This is recommended through OVR, but not familiar with it.
Yeah, Hiram Andrews is out in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. They've been there for decades. I don't know what kind of assessments they do. Because it's in Johnstown, the person may have to, commute. I don't know how they would do the assessments. I would ask the OVR counselor what other options are available for the assessments before you just stick with Hiram Andrews.
Okay. Can you speak more on a person choosing not to get a diploma? So basically thanking the diploma, and kind of talk through that. And is this the only option if you didn't get goals met in school?
Amy, take that one.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if a student is in the gen ed curriculum and, is, has their credits for high school, and, it feels ready to be done, ready to kind of move on to the next phase, then they might want to accept the diploma. But, to me, when you think about the 18 to 21 programming, it doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be actually just more of the same in the high school, right? It absolutely is not oh man, I failed 12th grade and now I'm gonna go back again for, that's it. It should be appropriate transition programming in the community to move because it's all about the least restrictive environment. And where is that, the least restrictive environment for that individual is with their peers, right? All of their peers have moved on to college or jobs or whatever. So they also should be moving on to working towards those goals. So accepting, like banking the diploma, or having a district hold the diploma, it should not be just more of the same in the high school. It should be programming specifically to work on, whatever they want to do. If they're not interested in going to college, do they want, to try to work, or do they want to, just have more experience, navigating the community, maybe getting some volunteer experience and, practicing shopping and cooking. And like, for example, in the City Connections program, they did, they would, all of the kids got a $40 stipend per month from the school district. So they all would open up a bank account, have I'm old enough to still call it a MAC card. I always call it a MAC card. They get the MAC card, they get the register. And so they would withdraw $20, write it in their thing, and then use that money to go to the, cafeteria, or, to get their lunch, or go to bowling as an outing, so they were using it for the programming, but they were getting that real life experience with money. And, again, using travel training, using public transportation, any kind of, just work experience, that kind of thing. So I would recommend definitely considering, banking the diploma so that they can do that. But you want to make sure that the district is up to speed on what that programming should look like, because it should not be just 3 more years, in the high school life skills room doing laundry. That's not what that should be. So I hope that makes sense.
And then just, to kind of keep jumping on the same topic here, if you do hold your diploma, but get more into the community and go to college, would the school still assign a paraprofessional, or, maybe what kind of supports the school helps with or not? How does that work?
So if the school assigns, I'm just going to look at the thing. Hold the diploma, get more. So if it's a college program, like, he does not have a paraprofessional at Duquesne, but he's got peer mentors that are part of the program. They've got like work study jobs. They work for the program, and so he meets with Nate 3 hours a week on Wednesdays or whatever, and they work on his internship. So he doesn't have a paraprofessional on the college campus. If you're talking about the 18 to 21 programming, he actually did still have a pair, but that was paid for by the school district. Yeah, hope that, I guess it just kind of, it depends. And that's part of what's confusing about the whole transition phase, is there's so many moving parts, and it's just kind of trying to like break it down. So what?
Any more questions about my internships?
You want to answer a question about the internship?
Any more questions about my internship?
Does anybody have a question about the internship?
You want to tell us about your favorite part of your internship?
Yeah.
What's your favorite part?
Andy Warhol.
Oh, you like that one? The Andy Warhol Museum?
One is I took cuttings,
Mm-hmm.
and the one was for taping.
Mm-hmm. Cutting and taping. You were preparing activities for the.
And those photos come from my aunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. She took some pictures of you down there. Yep.
That's awesome.
This one. Yeah.
So, any more?
Meredith, I want to go back for a minute to one of the questions. Question about, should you rely, I think it was something along the lines of, should you rely on, the transition coordinator or the OVR counselor? And one of the things that the advocacy team at Achieva always reminds families of is try to not rely on a support coordinator or a transition coordinator. Those people or OVR counselor, those people are going to come and go. Some are very knowledgeable, others not so much. So we always encourage families to, to gather information, come to opportunities like this, reach out for information, whether it's to, those of us at Achieva or to each other. Take advantage of as many opportunities as you can to learn, regardless of whether it's about post-secondary ed or waivers or, person-centered planning. Try not to rely on too many other people because they come and go. And you're the ones who are going to have to make the decisions for your family members throughout their life.
Awesome. Thank you. Here's another follow-up question. How does one access the Pittsburgh Promise? Can someone access it after graduation, and does it pay for tech schools?
Yeah, it does pay for tech school. It pays for any school that can receive a Pell Grant or something. I don't know. I guess don't quote me on that, but there's I would go to the Pittsburgh Promise website to find out, there's basically any student who was a PPS student or a student at one of the charter schools in the city. So unfortunately, if you lived outside of the city, they might not qualify for it, but but I would just go to the Pittsburgh Promise website. Yeah. Thank you, Meredith. Put the link in the chat.
Meredith, there's also another scholarship opportunity for students who live in the city of Pittsburgh or who attended a school outside of the city of Pittsburgh, but they did that as a Pittsburgh resident. So the Pittsburgh School District was actually paying for it in some way. It's called the Couples Scholarship, and it's on the Achieva website. It is named after a highly respected educator from Pittsburgh Public who served for many, many years in the as the director of special education. And last year, it's a new program. Last year was the first year we awarded a scholarship to a young man to attend community college. It's a one-year program, and so he's going to be finishing in a couple months now to become a chef. So again, if you live in the city of Pittsburgh or the student has attended a school outside of Pittsburgh, but you did it as a Pittsburgh resident, you're eligible for the Couples Scholarship, and it's CUPPLES. And we're going to be choosing another student or two in the next couple months. So anybody interested, get your application in or call me and whatever.
Thank you, Nancy, for the spelling of that, because I was trying to find it. So I have it here now that you spelled it, because I couldn't find it the way I was trying to spell it. So thank you. And then Ben, there are a couple more questions for you, my friend. What kind of transportation do you take to get to your internship?
Actually, my regular internship is botanical gardens.
Right, but how did you get there?
And
What was the transportation?
Where's that at?
And how did you get there? Did somebody drive you?
McKenna and my aunt.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
the same people.
Yeah, he actually, his habit drove him to the internships where, Nancy talked about using a combination of services, right? You can use your waiver services, OVR, like, it all kind of comes together. And so for us, it just made the most sense for his habit to be the one to drive him to his internship, particularly Pittsburgh Botanic Garden, because it's out towards the airport, so kind of far from Squirrel Hill. And yes, McKenna, yeah, from one of the peer mentors also drove him sometimes.
Yeah,
So.
my aunt too.
Yeah, she's your habit.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe.
That's awesome. And then somebody else wants to know if they offered you a job after your internship, or do you think they will offer you a job?
Yeah. You think they're gonna offer you a job?
I might come back after I'm graduating because I head back to Frick Park actually. When I'm done with my graduation thing
Mm-hmm.
to do, and I'm probably too, so that
Yeah.
and that.
Yeah.
Right, Amy?
Right. So
I
they
think-
didn't offer a job yet, but we're working on that part.
Awesome. Awesome. And I think this is a really important question. This is one that was submitted prior to the presentation, but just we talked a lot about, person-centered planning, but how do you prepare for, both the safety and social aspects of college? Like, is there any, tips or, suggestions on, what to be working on?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the leaving your kid on a college campus, and even just as a commuter, it's the first few times I left him, I was like, is he gonna be here when I need to pick him up or whatever? But he was fine. He was totally, but no, it's an important, I think, I would definitely, whatever programs you're looking at, talk to them about what are their, how do they approach it, as far as just kind of person-centered planning, like having, peer mentors and people who will be the support person that this person that can go to, but working on kind of self-advocacy skills. It's a lot. It's definitely a lot. So I can't say that it's like, all magically going to be perfect. It's definitely kind of a work in progress. I think having as much communication as you can, particularly, because you don't want to like just not acknowledge like safety issues and things like that. Like obviously that's really crucial.
She says thank you. Very nice.
Oh yeah, she said thank you in the chat. Yeah.
Oh,
She's reading the
that's
chat.
fine.
Awesome. Is there any
Yeah,
other
so I don't know if
questions?
that gave a good answer to that, but I think it's just,
Well, and I think that's, I think I'm right there with you as a work in progress. My daughter is 15, and just some of the things that as a freshman in high school, just what are we looking at? How are we managing, and just working through, just setting her up for success. And some of the big things that we do is just personal boundaries. Like we have a hard boundary of hugs. She is not allowed to hug anybody unless it's family. And that is something that we've instilled since elementary school. So, I think that's, helping her just, one small thing that we're able to, set up for her. So, and just kind of working through, and just, I know some people talk about doing a weekend camp, to try to stay, if you're looking at an on-campus program, practicing independence, having that support, in a camping experience, spending the night at a friend, at grandparents, just working through just steps now, just to prepare for independence. So I just think that there's a lot of, just different opportunities. Does anybody else
practicing with
have?
the phone, like he,
Oh,
got
that's a
very
good
good at
point. Yeah.
texting, and he'll call or so I think there's that also helps. And then I installed the what is that? Find my iPhone thing on it. So I can
Yeah.
sort of spy on him.
Yeah.
Where is he?
Yeah. And somebody mentioned Camp Pals. So that is something that's coming, here to Pittsburgh in July. DSAP has helped bringing that here for the first time, which is really exciting. That's going to be in July 16th to the 22nd at Pitt. So that's an opportunity where individuals with Down syndrome, ages 17 to 25, will get paired up with peers their age, doing a whole on-campus camping experience, experiencing college life and things like that. So, that's a great opportunity. There's other PALs outside of Pittsburgh as well. And yes, I can share the PALs website as well. Is there any other questions anybody has? And if there's any other questions, I'm just going to put up this QR code while I'm grabbing this is to our survey. We're going to send it via email along with a copy of a PDF of the presentation. So you have all of the references to be able to take a look at. We'll send the link for the recording so you can watch it again and, catch anything that you may have missed, as well as asking you to take the survey. It just helps us plan and, better what can we do different? What other opportunities that we could be providing, as well as, what awesome information that both Nancy, Amy, and Ben were able to provide us tonight. So are there any other last minute questions?
Well, thanks everybody for joining us this evening. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call Amy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Not a
Yeah,
problem.
But awesome. But here's the PALS, the Pittsburgh link I just put in. But if you just, you can move and navigate throughout to get to other programs as well. But thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. This is very informative. And any questions, you can certainly reach out to us and we can always get you in the right direction as well. So thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.